The words came out of her mouth like venom wrapped in silk. I think it's time for you to leave, Jasmine. I was standing in the grand foyer of my sister-in-law's house in Buckhead, Atlanta's most exclusive neighborhood, staring at Brittany like she'd just slapped me. Behind her, through the open double doors that led to the living room, I could see my brother Marcus's 40th birthday party in full swing. At least 60 people were there. Family, friends, colleagues from Emory Hospital, where Marcus worked as one of their top cardiothoracic surgeons. Everyone was dressed in cocktail attire, holding champagne flutes, laughing and celebrating under the massive crystal chandelier that Brittany had insisted on installing last year during their kitchen renovation. The renovation I'd heard about in excruciating detail over Sunday dinners. The renovation that had cost $150,000. The renovation that Brittany had posted about on Instagram with hashtags like blessed and building our dream home and luxury life. And now she was standing in that renovated foyer in that dream home, telling me I needed to leave my own brother's birthday party. "Excuse me?" I said, certain I'd misheard her over the music drifting from the living room. "You heard me." Brittany's voice was calm, almost pleasant, but her eyes were hard. "I don't think you should be here. This is a family event, and quite frankly, Jasmine, you're not really family anymore." The room spun slightly. Not really family anymore. The words didn't make sense strung together like that. I was Marcus's sister. We'd grown up in the same house in East Atlanta, sharing bunk beds until I was 12 and he was 14. We'd survived our parents' rough patches, celebrated holidays together, been there for each other through first loves and heartbreaks and graduations. I'd been in his wedding. He'd been in mine before my divorce 3 years ago. We were family by blood, by history, by every definition that mattered. "Brittany, what are you talking about? Marcus is my brother." "Of course I'm family." She crossed her arms, and I noticed she was wearing a dress I'd complimented her on at Nordstrom 2 months ago. A designer piece that cost $3,000. I remembered because she'd asked me if I thought it was too expensive, and I'd told her to treat herself. She deserved it. Looking at her now in that dress, in this moment, I wondered if she'd bought it specifically to wear while kicking me out of her house. "Are you, though?" Brittany's perfectly manicured eyebrow arched. "When's the last time you came to one of the kids' birthday parties? When's the last time you remembered their actual birthdays without Facebook reminding you? When's the last time you showed up for family dinner without your phone glued to your hand taking work calls?" Each question was a small cut, and they were designed to hit specific wounds. I had missed Kennedy's 8th birthday party 3 months ago because I'd been in Boston closing a deal with a major client. I had forgotten Tyler's 13th birthday last year and sent a gift card 2 weeks late. I had taken work calls during family dinners, plural, because running a business didn't stop for Sundays. But those were mistakes, failures of time management and priorities. They weren't reasons to be excommunicated from my own family. I've been busy building a company, Brittany. You know that. It doesn't mean I don't care about this family. Doesn't it, though? Her voice was rising now, and I could see people in the living room starting to turn toward us, starting to notice the confrontation happening in the foyer. You care about your company. You care about your success. You care about being the golden child, the one who made it, the one mom and dad brag about to everyone at church. But you don't care about us. Not really. We're just an inconvenience. Something you fit in when you have spare time between board meetings and business trips. That's not fair. Isn't it? Tell me the last time you asked about my life, about what I'm doing, what I care about, what my days look like. Tell me the last time you treated me like a person instead of Marcus's wife, the woman married to your brother, someone whose only relevance to you is her connection to him. I opened my mouth to respond and realized I couldn't, because she was right. When had I last asked Brittany about her life? When had I last had a real conversation with her that wasn't surface-level small talk at a family function? I'm sorry if I made you feel that way, but Brittany, you can't kick me out of Marcus's birthday party because I've been a bad sister-in-law. That's not how this works. I can do whatever I want in my own house. Her voice was ice now. And I'm telling you, politely, that I think it's best if you leave. You're not wanted here. By you. You mean you don't want me here? What about Marcus? Did you ask him if he wants his own sister at his birthday party? Marcus agrees with me. She said it so confidently, so certainly, that I knew it had to be true. She'd talked to him about this. They'd discussed kicking me out. My brother, my actual blood, had agreed that I should be excluded from his celebration. That hurt worse than anything Brittany had said. I need to hear that from Marcus. You don't need to hear anything from anyone. You need to respect what I'm telling you and leave with whatever dignity you have left. My face was burning. I could feel all those eyes on me now, could see heads turning, conversations stopping, people starting to whisper. The successful CEO getting kicked out of her brother's party. The woman who built a multi-million-dollar consulting firm but couldn't maintain basic family relationships. The tragedy of ambition, the cost of success. I should have demanded to speak to Marcus. Should have pushed past Brittany and found my brother and forced him to tell me to my face that he didn't want me there. But the humiliation was too much. The eyes, the whispers, the knowledge that everyone was watching me get rejected by my own family. So I left. Walked back to my car with as much composure as I could muster, my heels clicking on the brick driveway, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall until I was safely locked inside my Mercedes. Marcus's birthday present sat in the passenger seat. A vintage Rolex I'd spent weeks tracking down through collectors and auction houses. Something he'd mentioned wanting years ago. Something I'd remembered because I did pay attention to my family. I did care. I did try. I drove away from that house in Buckhead with everyone watching from the windows, and I cried so hard I had to pull over twice before I made it home to my condo in Midtown. My name is Jasmine Clark, and that night in October 2023 was both the worst and the best thing that ever happened to me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and tell you who I am, where I came from, why that moment in Brittany's foyer hurt so much and changed everything that came after. I was born in 1985 in Atlanta, Georgia, at Grady Hospital. My mother, Patricia Clark, was 23 years old and working 2 jobs, one as a cashier at Kroger and one cleaning offices downtown at night. My father, James Clark, was 25 and working construction during the day while going to community college at night trying to get his associate's degree. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in East Atlanta, and I shared a room with my older brother Marcus until I was 12. Money was always tight. Christmas meant practical gifts, clothes we needed, maybe one toy if we were lucky. Vacations were driving to my grandmother's house in Macon, staying in her spare room, eating her cooking, and swimming at the public pool. Dinner was often rice and beans, chicken if we could afford it, vegetables from the garden my mother kept on our small patio. But we weren't poor in spirit. My parents made sure we knew education was the way out. Reading was mandatory. Homework was supervised. Teachers were respected. When Marcus showed aptitude for science, my parents scraped together money for a microscope. When I showed aptitude for math, they found a way to pay for an after-school tutoring program. Marcus went to Morehouse on a partial scholarship, supplemented by student loans and a job working campus security. He was pre-med from day one, focused and determined. He graduated magna cum laude, got into Emory Medical School, specialized in cardiothoracic surgery, and by 35 he was one of the top earners in his field. I went to Spelman on a full academic scholarship, studied business and mathematics, graduated summa cum laude, got my MBA from Emory's Goizueta Business School while working full-time as a junior analyst at a consulting firm. I was 26 when I started Clark Consulting Group with $20,000 in savings and a business plan I'd written in coffee shops and libraries, staying up until 3 in the morning because I was working my day job and building my company at the same time. Those first years were brutal. Eating ramen, living in a studio apartment in a sketchy part of town, wearing the same 3 professional outfits in rotation because I couldn't afford more, pitching to clients who looked at me, a young black woman, and decided I couldn't possibly have the expertise to solve their problems. But I did have the expertise, and I worked harder than anyone, stayed later, delivered better results, built a reputation. By year 3, I had 6 employees. By year 5, 15. By year 7, I had to move into a real office because we'd outgrown the co-working space. By year 10, we had 42 employees, offices in Atlanta, Charlotte, and Nashville, and annual revenue of $12 million. I'd made it. The American dream. From a 2-bedroom apartment in East Atlanta to a penthouse condo in Midtown. From wearing the same 3 outfits to having a closet full of designer clothes. From worrying about making rent to having a financial advisor manage my investments. But somewhere along the way, I'd lost track of other things. Of showing up for my family. Of being present. Of maintaining relationships that didn't directly contribute to my business success. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten until Brittany kicked me out of that party. If you're listening to this story and wondering what happened next, if you've ever been told you're not wanted somewhere you thought you belonged, stay with me. Because what I discovered about my sister-in-law in the weeks after that party didn't just change my family dynamics. It changed everything I understood about trust and betrayal and what it means to really know someone. Hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications, because this story is just beginning, and the truth I uncovered was worse than I ever imagined. I didn't hear from Marcus for 4 days after the party. Didn't hear from Brittany. Didn't hear from anyone in my family except my mother, who called me Saturday morning, 2 days after the party, with concern in her voice. Jasmine, baby, I heard you left Marcus's party early. Is everything okay? I was sitting in my home office, trying to focus on quarterly reports and failing miserably. I didn't leave early, Mom. Brittany kicked me out. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you mean she kicked you out? I mean, she told me I wasn't family anymore and asked me to leave, in front of everyone. Marcus agreed with her. That doesn't sound like Brittany. Are you sure that's what happened? Maybe there was a misunderstanding. This was my mother's default mode. Peacekeeper, benefit of the doubt giver, conflict avoider. She'd spent her whole life smoothing over rough patches, making excuses for people, trying to keep everyone happy. Mom, there was no misunderstanding. She literally said I'm not really family and need to leave. I was humiliated in front of 60 people. Well, sweetie, you have been very busy lately. Maybe she felt like you weren't prioritizing family time. You know how sensitive she can be about that kind of thing. And there it was. My mother, without meaning to, making this my fault. If I'd just shown up more, been more present, been a better sister-in-law, then Brittany wouldn't have felt compelled to embarrass me publicly. So her being cruel is justified because I work a lot? That's what you're saying? I'm not saying it's justified. I'm saying there might be reasons behind why she did what she did. Have you talked to Marcus? He hasn't called me. Maybe you should call him. Clear the air. You know how he hates conflict. If he hates conflict so much, he should have stopped his wife from kicking his sister out of his party. Jasmine. My mother's voice took on that warning tone I'd heard my whole childhood. Don't let pride get in the way of family. Reach out to your brother, talk to Brittany, work this out. Why is it always on me to fix things? Why do I have to be the one to apologize when I didn't do anything wrong? Because you're the one calling me upset. Because you're the one who feels hurt. Because you're my daughter and I want you to be happy, and you won't be happy if you're estranged from your brother. She wasn't wrong, but she also wasn't right. I hung up feeling worse than before I'd called her. The weekend passed slowly. I tried to work, but my concentration was shot. Tried to watch TV, but nothing held my attention. Tried to go to the gym, but gave up after 10 minutes on the treadmill. Everything felt wrong. Off. Like I was waiting for something to happen but didn't know what. Monday morning, I went to the office early. 6 a.m., before anyone else arrived. Sat in my corner office looking out at the Atlanta skyline and tried to figure out how to move forward. Do I reach out to Marcus? Wait for him to reach out to me? Pretend this never happened. My assistant Angela arrived at 7:30, like always. She'd been with me for 8 years, since Clark Consulting Group was just me and 3 other people working out of a co-working space. She was 35, Latina, and had a no-nonsense way of calling me on my bullshit that I appreciated even when it stung. She took one look at me and said, "You look terrible. What happened?" "Family stuff. It's fine. It's not fine if you're here at 6 in the morning looking like you haven't slept. Talk to me." So I told her. About the party, about Brittany, about Marcus not calling, about my mother telling me to apologize. Angela listened without interrupting, which was rare for her, and when I finished, she sat back in her chair and shook her head. "That's messed up. Like really messed up. Thanks for the validation. I'm serious. You don't kick family out of a party unless something big happened. What did you do?" "Nothing. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I've been working a lot, sure, but that's not a crime. It doesn't warrant public humiliation." "Okay, but here's what I don't get. You said Brittany works for us, right? Part-time in admin?" "Yeah, about 15 hours a week. Data entry, filing, answering phones when our receptionist is out. Nothing major." "And you gave her that job when?" 3 years ago. She mentioned wanting to work part-time while the kids were in school, and we had an opening, so I offered it to her. Thought I was helping." "Right. So you literally gave your sister-in-law a job and now she's kicking you out of parties and saying you're not family? That makes no sense. Unless..." Angela trailed off, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Unless what? Unless she's feeling guilty about something. People don't lash out like that for no reason. They lash out when they're trying to justify something they did, or when they're trying to preemptively control a narrative. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe you should look at her work records, just to make sure everything's above board." "Angela, she's family. I'm not going to spy on her." "It's not spying if you're her boss. And honestly, Jasmine, family are the people you should watch most carefully. They have the most access and the most to gain from your trust." I didn't want to believe that. Didn't want to consider that Brittany might be doing something shady at work. But Angela's words stuck with me all day. That evening, after everyone else had left the office, I pulled up our HR system. Clark Consulting Group had grown enough that we had real infrastructure: payroll software, time tracking, benefits administration, everything automated and supposedly secure. I had admin access to all of it, but I rarely looked at individual employee records. That was Angela's job and our HR manager's job. I focused on strategy, on client relationships, on growing the business. But tonight, I looked. I pulled up Brittany's employee file. Her start date was October 2020. She was classified as part-time, non-exempt, which meant she was paid hourly and eligible for overtime if she worked more than 40 hours in a week. Her rate was $20 an hour, which was fair for the administrative work she did. I pulled up her timesheets for the last 3 months. What I saw made my stomach drop. The week of September 18th through September 22nd, she'd logged 42 hours. 42 hours. For someone who was supposed to be working 15 hours a week. The week of September 25th through September 29th, 45 hours. The week of October 2nd through October 6th, 48 hours. I scrolled back further. This pattern went back months. Some weeks she logged 35 hours. Some weeks 40. Some weeks even more. And because she was exceeding 40 hours, she was getting overtime. Time and a half. $30 an hour instead of 20. I checked the dates against my calendar. The week of September 18th, I'd been in the office every day. I would have seen Brittany if she'd been working 42 hours. But I hadn't seen her. I'd maybe seen her once for a few hours, doing filing in the storage room. The week of September 25th, I'd been at a conference in Charlotte Monday through Wednesday. But I'd been back in the office Thursday and Friday. If Brittany had been working 45 hours that week, I would have seen her those days. I hadn't. I pulled up our office security logs. We had badge access for the building. Every time someone swiped in or out, it was recorded with a timestamp. Brittany's badge records didn't match her timesheets. Not even close. September 18th, she'd clocked in for 8 hours on her timesheet. Her badge showed she'd entered the building at 10:15 a.m. and left at 2:30 p.m. 4 hours, not 8. September 19th, she'd clocked 8 hours on her timesheet. Her badge showed she'd never entered the building at all. September 20th, same thing. 8 hours claimed, 0 badge swipes. I kept going through the records, day by day, week by week. The pattern was clear and sickening. Brittany was claiming hours she never worked. She was logging full days when she'd only been in the office for a few hours. She was collecting overtime pay for time she'd spent doing God knows what. This was fraud. Systematic, deliberate fraud. I pulled up her banking records, the ones we had on file for direct deposit. Every 2 weeks, her paycheck went into an account at SunTrust. I did quick math. Based on the hours she'd fraudulently claimed over the last 3 months alone, she'd stolen approximately $9,000. $9,000 in 3 months. I scrolled back further in the records. The pattern went back over a year, maybe longer. I'd need to do a full audit to know for sure, but conservatively, Brittany had probably stolen at least $30,000 from my company, my sister-in-law, the woman who'd kicked me out of a party for not being present enough, the woman who'd told me I wasn't really family. She'd been stealing from me for over a year. I sat in my office until past midnight, going through every record I could find. The more I looked, the worse it got. Brittany wasn't just padding her hours. She was claiming to work during weeks when I knew she was on vacation. She was logging hours during times when she'd posted on social media about being at the spa or having lunch with friends. She'd been so brazen, so confident I'd never check, so certain that family trust would cover her crimes. By the time I left the office that night, I felt sick. Not just angry, but physically ill. This wasn't a small mistake. This wasn't an accidental error in time tracking. This was deliberate, systematic theft from someone who was supposed to love me. I drove home in a daze, parked in my building's garage, rode the elevator up to my penthouse, stood in my living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. The people I thought I could trust most, family, were the ones betraying me. I didn't sleep that night, just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted to call the police immediately, to press charges, to make sure Brittany faced consequences for what she'd done. But the other part of me thought about my niece and nephew, about Kennedy, who was 8 and loved to draw and wanted to be a veterinarian, about Tyler, who was 13 and played basketball and was applying to private high schools. about how it would destroy them to see their mother arrested for fraud. I thought about Marcus, about how this would affect him, his wife being charged with a crime, the humiliation, the gossip, the way it would reflect on him professionally. I thought about my parents, about how devastated they'd be, how they'd try to fix it, to smooth it over, to make peace. How my mother would beg me to forgive, to think of the children, to prioritize family over justice. And I thought about Brittany, about how she'd looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't family anymore while stealing from me, about the audacity of it, the calculated cruelty. By morning, I'd made a decision. I was going to confront her directly, give her a chance to explain, to apologize, to make it right. And if she didn't, if she tried to lie or deflect or blame me, then I'd take it to the authorities. I called Angela at 7 a.m. I need you to pull all of Brittany's records, timesheets, badge logs, everything, and I need you to do a full payroll audit. I think we might have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where someone's been stealing from us. Silence. Then, I'll have everything ready by noon. I went to the office and tried to work, but mostly I just waited. Waited for Angela to compile the evidence. Waited to see the full scope of the betrayal. Waited to figure out my next move. At 11:30, Angela came into my office and closed the door. She looked pale. It's worse than you think. How much worse? Brittany's not the only one. There are 2 other part-time employees with suspicious time records, both people you hired through family connections. My stomach dropped. Who? Your cousin Terrence. He's been padding his hours too. And Marcus's friend from college, Devin. Same pattern, claiming hours they didn't work, collecting overtime they didn't earn. How much? Total? Including Brittany? About $63,000 over the last 18 months. $63,000. Stolen by people I'd trusted. People I'd hired because they were family or friends of family. People who'd looked at my generosity and seen an opportunity to exploit me. I felt rage building in my chest. Hot and sharp and overwhelming. Not just about the money, though that was significant. About the betrayal. About the way they'd taken advantage of someone who was trying to help them. What do you want me to do? Angela asked quietly. Document everything. I need a full report. Every false time entry, every badge record that doesn't match, every dollar that was stolen. And Angela, don't tell anyone yet. I need to handle this carefully. She nodded and left. I sat in my office for another hour, trying to process what I'd learned. 3 people, $63,000, over a year of systematic fraud, and Brittany had been the ringleader. I'd bet money on it. She'd figured out how to exploit the system, and she'd brought others in, maybe even taught them how to do it. That afternoon, I drove to Brittany's house unannounced. It was 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. The kids would be in school, Marcus would be at the hospital. It would just be her and me. She answered the door in workout clothes, clearly fresh from the gym she claimed she couldn't afford without the extra money she was stealing from me. Jasmine. She looked surprised, and not pleasantly. What are you doing here? We need to talk. Can I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. I walked into her beautiful house, the one with the $150,000 renovation, and sat down in her pristine living room without being invited. What's this about? Brittany asked, remaining standing, clearly uncomfortable. Your hours at my company, the timesheets you've been submitting. I watched her face carefully, watched the color drain from her cheeks, watched her eyes widen slightly before she tried to cover the reaction. What about them? They're fraudulent. You've been claiming hours you didn't work, logging time for days you weren't even in the city, collecting overtime pay for shifts you never showed up for. I don't know what you're talking about. But her voice was shaky now, uncertain. Don't lie to me, Brittany. I have all the records, timesheets, badge logs, payroll data. I know exactly what you've been doing. I know you've stolen approximately $30,000 from my company over the last 18 months. She sat down heavily on the couch across from me. How did you find out? At least she wasn't denying it anymore. Does it matter? The point is, I know. And I know you're not the only one. Terrence and Devin have been doing the same thing. I didn't tell them to do it. They figured it out on their own. But you taught them how, didn't you? You showed them the weakness in the system, made it look easy. She didn't answer, just sat there looking at me with something between fear and defiance. I need you to explain to me why, Brittany. Why would you do this? I gave you a job when you needed one. I trusted you. We're family. Are we? She looked up at me, and there was anger in her eyes now. Because you didn't seem to think so when you were too busy to come to Kennedy's birthday party, or when you forgot Tyler's birthday completely, Or when you showed up to family dinners and spent the whole time on your phone. So this is my punishment? For not being present enough? You steal from me? I didn't steal from you. I took what I deserved. Do you know how much you pay me? $20 an hour. $20. For work I'm overqualified for. I have a college degree, Jasmine. I have skills. But you treat me like I'm some secretary who should be grateful for whatever scraps you throw my way. Then quit. Ask for a raise. Don't commit fraud. Like you'd give me a raise. You barely even remember I work for you. When's the last time we had a conversation about my job? When's the last time you asked if I was happy with my work? If I needed more responsibility? If I had any ambitions beyond answering phones? That's not the point. That's exactly the point. You act like you're doing me this huge favor by giving me a part-time job, but you don't actually value me or my contributions. You don't see me as anything more than Marcus's wife, the woman who married your brother, someone whose only relevance is her connection to him. So you stole from me. You committed fraud. You collected $30,000 you didn't earn. I earned it. She was standing now, her voice rising. I earned it by putting up with your condescension, by being invisible to you, by watching you succeed while I'm stuck at home raising kids and doing part-time work that means nothing. I earned every cent by being treated like I don't matter. That's insane. That's not how any of this works. You don't get to steal from people because your feelings are hurt. My feelings aren't hurt, Jasmine. I'm angry. I'm tired of watching you act like you're better than everyone. Your fancy company, your penthouse condo, your expensive clothes, acting like you're so generous for hiring family, but really you're just collecting people who'll be grateful to you, who'll tell you how amazing you are, who'll feed your ego. Is that what you think? That I hired you to feed my ego? Why else would you hire me? You didn't need me. Your company was doing fine without me, but it made you look good, didn't it? The successful CEO helping family, making sure her sister-in-law had a job. Never mind that you paid me poverty wages and treated me like I was disposable. I stared at her, trying to understand how we'd gotten here. How the woman I'd thought I knew, the woman I'd called family for 15 years, had been harboring this much resentment, had been justifying theft as some kind of twisted justice. You're going to pay it back, every cent. She laughed, sharp and bitter. With what money? You think I have $30,000 just sitting around? I don't care how you get it. Sell something, take out a loan, get a second job, but you're going to pay back every dollar you stole. Or what? You'll turn me in? Press charges against your own family? You're the one who said I'm not family, remember? At Marcus's party? So yes, if I have to, I'll press charges. This is fraud, Brittany. This is a crime. You could go to prison. You wouldn't do that. Think about Kennedy and Tyler. Think about what it would do to them to see their mother arrested. Maybe you should have thought about that before you started stealing. She was crying now, but they felt like manipulation tears. Tears designed to make me feel guilty, to make me back down. Please, Jasmine, I'll pay it back. I swear. Just don't press charges. Don't do this to my family. Your family. What about my company? What about the trust I placed in you? What about the fact that you've been lying to me for 18 months? I was desperate. Marcus and I are drowning in debt. The mortgage on this house, the kids' private school tuition, the car payments. We're barely keeping our heads above water. I needed the money. Then sell the house. Take the kids out of private school. Get a real job that pays more. Don't steal from family. That's easy for you to say. You're rich. You have everything. You don't know what it's like to struggle. I came from the same place you came from, Brittany. Same economic background, same opportunities. The difference is I worked my ass off to build something instead of stealing from people who tried to help me. She didn't have an answer for that, just sat there crying and looking pathetic. I stood up. You have 1 week. 1 week to come up with a plan to pay back everything you stole. If you can show me a realistic repayment schedule and stick to it, I won't press charges. But if you don't, if you try to run or hide or make excuses, I'm going to the police, and I'm making sure everyone in this family knows exactly what you did. You can't tell Marcus. Please. If he finds out, it'll destroy our marriage. Maybe it should be destroyed. Maybe he deserves to know who he's married to. He doesn't know. I've been doing this without telling him. He thinks I'm just working overtime. If you tell him, if he finds out I've been lying to him too, he'll leave me. That's not my problem. You made these choices. Now you live with the consequences. I walked to the door, turned back to look at her one more time. 1 week, Brittany. Don't make me regret giving you this chance. I left before she could respond, got in my car and sat there for a long moment, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. That had been one of the hardest conversations of my life. Confronting someone I'd considered family, watching them try to justify theft as some kind of righteous rebellion against my success. But I'd done it. I'd stood up for myself. And now I had to wait and see if Brittany would make this right, or if I'd have to follow through on my threat. If you've stuck with me this far, if you're wondering whether Brittany paid back the money or whether I had to press charges, stay with me because this story is about to get even more complicated. Hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on, because what happened in the week after that confrontation changed my entire family and taught me lessons about loyalty and betrayal that I'm still processing today. Brittany didn't call me that week, didn't text, didn't show up at my office, just complete silence. On day 5, my brother Marcus called me. It was 8 p.m. on a Sunday. I was at home, trying to watch a movie and failing to focus on the plot. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "Can you come over tomorrow night?" "About what?" "Just come over, 7 p.m., please." He hung up before I could argue. I sat there staring at my phone, knowing what this meant. Brittany had told him, or he'd figured it out. Either way, tomorrow was going to be ugly. I showed up at their house at exactly 7 p.m. the next day. Marcus answered the door. He looked tired, older than his 40 years. He didn't smile, didn't hug me. Just gestured for me to come in. Brittany was sitting in the living room. The kids were nowhere to be seen, probably upstairs or at a friend's house. It was just the 3 of us. "Sit," Marcus said. Not warmly, not like a brother asking his sister to sit, like a judge commanding a defendant. I sat. Brittany told me what happened, about the payroll thing. The payroll thing. I repeated his words slowly. "Is that what we're calling fraud now?" "Don't." His voice was sharp. "Don't make this worse than it already is. I'm not the one who made it bad, Marcus. Your wife stole from me. $30,000. Over 18 months. That's not a minor mistake. That's systematic theft." She explained why she did it. The financial stress we're under, the pressure of keeping up with expenses. She made a mistake. She made a mistake every single week for 18 months. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. A deliberate choice to steal from someone who tried to help her. Brittany was crying. Again. The same tears as before. "I told you I was sorry. I told you I'd pay it back. Did you come up with a repayment plan, like I asked?" Silence. "Brittany, it's been almost a week. Do you have a plan to pay back the money or not?" "We can give you $500 a month," Marcus said. "It'll take a while, but we'll pay you back eventually." I did quick math. $60,000 at $500 a month was 120 months. 10 years. They wanted me to wait 10 years to be repaid for money that was stolen from me. "No, that's not acceptable. What do you want from us?" Marcus's voice was rising. "We don't have $30,000 just sitting around. We have 3 kids, a mortgage, expenses. We can't just magically come up with that kind of money. Then sell something. Downsize. Do whatever you need to do. But I'm not waiting 10 years for you to pay me back in installments that barely cover the interest. You're being unreasonable." "I'm being unreasonable? Marcus, your wife stole from me, committed fraud, and you're acting like I'm the problem for wanting my money back. Because you are the problem." He was on his feet now, his voice loud enough that I worried the neighbors might hear. "You've always been the problem. Always so focused on yourself, on your success, on being the golden child. You don't care about anyone except yourself and your precious company. That's not true and you know it. Isn't it? When's the last time you asked about my life? About my work at the hospital? About the research I'm doing? About anything other than your own achievements? When's the last time you asked about mine? This goes both ways, Marcus. I don't need to ask. You make sure everyone knows how successful you are, how much money you're making, how important your company is. You're constantly reminding us that you're the successful one." The words hit harder than I expected, because there was truth in them. I had talked about my company a lot, had shared my successes, had probably bragged more than I should have. Not to make anyone feel small, but because I was proud, because I'd built something from nothing, because I wanted my family to be proud of me too. But I'd never stopped to think about how it made them feel, how it might have come across as arrogance instead of pride, how Marcus might have felt living in my shadow despite being a literal heart surgeon. I'm sorry if I made you feel that way, but Marcus, that doesn't excuse what Brittany did. She stole from me. You can't justify that by saying I was insensitive or self-centered. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm trying to make you understand why she did it. She was desperate. We're in debt. We're struggling. And you're over here living in a penthouse acting like money doesn't matter. Money does matter, especially when someone steals it from you. What do you want, Jasmine? His voice was cold now. You want to destroy my marriage? You want my kids to see their mother arrested? You want revenge because you're angry? I want accountability. I want an apology that actually means something. And I want my money back. Then take the payment plan or press charges. Your choice. But understand that if you press charges, you're ending our relationship. You're choosing your company over your family. I'm choosing justice over protecting someone who wronged me. There's a difference. Not to me. We stared at each other. Brothers, blood, decades of history. And in that moment, I saw the divide between us. Saw that no matter what I said, he was going to side with his wife, was going to defend her actions, was going to make me the villain in this story. Fine, I said finally. I'll take the payment plan. But Brittany's fired, effective immediately, and I want it in writing, a signed agreement acknowledging what she did and what she owes, so there's no confusion later. Fine, Marcus said. Brittany was still crying. I'm sorry, Jasmine, I really am. I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed your trust. I'll pay you back. Every cent. You're also going to apologize to everyone in the family. You're going to tell them what you did. All of it. No lies, no excuses. They deserve to know. What? No, I can't. Yes, you can, and you will. Part of making this right is being honest about what you did. If you want me to not press charges, you'll tell the truth. Jasmine, that's cruel, Marcus said. Why do you need to humiliate her in front of everyone? Because she humiliated me in front of everyone at your party. Turnabout is fair play. This isn't about fairness. This is about revenge. Call it whatever you want. Those are my terms. Take them, or I press charges. I left their house that night with a signed repayment agreement and a family that was fractured beyond recognition. Marcus had barely looked at me when I left. Brittany was still crying, and I felt hollow, like I'd won something but lost more in the process. The next few days were tense. My mother called me crying, begging me to forgive Brittany, to not make her apologize publicly, to think about the children. My father called and said Brittany was wrong, but that I needed to show grace. My siblings called with their own opinions, divided between supporting me and thinking I was being too harsh. Family dinners became impossible. There was too much tension, too much anger, too much hurt. We stopped gathering, stopped pretending everything was okay. I threw myself back into work. It was easier there. Cleaner. Business problems had business solutions. Unlike family problems, which just seemed to spiral endlessly without resolution. Angela helped me implement new systems at the company. Mandatory manager approval for all overtime. Random audits of employee hours. Verification procedures that should have been in place from the beginning. Everything I should have done but hadn't, because I'd trusted people. 2 weeks after my confrontation with Marcus and Brittany, we held a family meeting at my parents' house. Everyone was there. Parents, siblings, spouses. Brittany and Marcus's kids were at a friend's house. This was adults only. I'd insisted on it. Had told my mother that if Brittany wanted to avoid criminal charges, she needed to tell everyone what she'd done. No more hiding, no more protecting her. Just honesty. Brittany looked like she'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. Dark circles under her eyes. Weight loss that made her face look gaunt. She sat next to Marcus, who had his arm around her in solidarity. A united front against me. Everyone's here, my mother said nervously. Jasmine, you said you had something important to discuss? Not me, Brittany does. All eyes turned to her. She looked down at her hands, twisting her wedding ring around her finger. I owe everyone an apology, she said quietly. Especially Jasmine. I did something terrible, something I'm deeply ashamed of. She paused, took a shaky breath, then continued. For the last 18 months, I've been committing fraud at Jasmine's company. I've been claiming hours I didn't work, logging time for days I wasn't even there, collecting overtime pay I didn't earn. I stole $30,000 from her. The room erupted. My siblings talking over each other. My mother gasping. My father looking like he'd been punched. Everyone shocked, horrified, trying to understand how this had happened. Why? My mother asked, her voice breaking. Why would you do that? Because I was desperate. Because Marcus and I are drowning in debt and I didn't know how else to help. Because I felt like no one valued me or appreciated what I contribute to this family. Because I was angry and bitter and I made terrible choices. You stole from your own family, my father said. His voice was quiet but carried weight. Disappointment. Disbelief. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. Especially to you, Jasmine. You gave me a job when I needed one. You trusted me, and I betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. My youngest sister, Nicole, spoke up. Are you pressing charges, Jasmine? No. Brittany's going to pay back every cent she stole. We have a repayment agreement, but she's fired from the company and she's not welcome back. That's fair, my father said. More than fair, honestly. You could have had her arrested. I thought about it, but I didn't want to destroy the family, even though it seems like that's happening anyway. Don't say that, my mother said quickly. We're family. We'll get through this. Will we, Mom? Because right now it feels like we're more divided than we've ever been. Half the family thinks I'm being too harsh. The other half thinks Brittany should face legal consequences. And meanwhile, my relationship with Marcus is destroyed. Marcus finally spoke. That's not all on you, Jasmine. But you have to admit you've contributed to the problem. You've been so focused on your company that you've neglected this family for years. So Brittany stealing from me is my fault because I work too much? That's the argument you're making? I'm saying there's nuance here. I'm saying maybe if you'd been more present, if you'd treated Brittany with more respect, if you'd actually valued her contributions, she wouldn't have felt desperate enough to do what she did. Or maybe she's just a thief who got caught and you're trying to justify it because you don't want to admit your wife is capable of fraud. The room went silent. My mother looked like she might cry. My father was staring at Marcus with an expression I couldn't read. My siblings were uncomfortable, shifting in their seats, not knowing whose side to take. I think everyone needs to calm down, Nicole said. This is family. We don't tear each other apart like this. Sometimes family is the people who hurt you most, I said quietly, because they have the most access, the most trust, the most opportunity. I left the family meeting early. Couldn't stand being in that room anymore, feeling everyone's judgment, watching people choose sides. Got in my car and drove aimlessly for an hour, trying to figure out how my life had gotten so complicated. The months after that meeting were hard. My family didn't recover the way my mother had hoped. We didn't just move past this and go back to normal. Instead, we fractured into factions. My dad and Nicole and my youngest brother Jordan sided with me, saying Brittany should face real consequences. My mother and my other siblings tried to stay neutral, but clearly thought I was being too harsh. Marcus and Brittany isolated themselves, stopped coming to family events where I'd be present. I focused on work, on building my company, on being successful. It was what I knew how to do, what I was good at. Unlike navigating family drama, which felt impossible, Angela helped me hire a private investigator to do a full audit of all our employees. We found one more case of time theft, someone who'd been padding hours by 20 minutes a day for 6 months. Small potatoes compared to Brittany, but still wrong. I fired them immediately, implemented even stricter controls, made it clear that this company was mine and I wouldn't tolerate anyone taking advantage of my trust again. 6 months after everything exploded, I was at a coffee shop downtown when I ran into Marcus. Pure coincidence. We were both in line, didn't see each other until we were face to face. Jasmine, Marcus. Awkward silence. Then, can we talk? After we get coffee? Sure. We sat at a table by the window, both of us uncomfortable, neither knowing how to start. I owe you an apology, Marcus said finally, for how I handled everything with Brittany, for defending her when she was clearly wrong, for making you feel like you were the problem. Okay. It's just, she's my wife. I'm supposed to protect her, support her. And admitting what she did meant admitting that I married someone capable of stealing from family. That was hard. I understand. But Marcus, she hurt me. She betrayed me. And you chose to defend her instead of supporting me. You made me feel like I was crazy for being upset about being robbed. I know. And I'm sorry. I was wrong. I see that now. What changed? Therapy. We've been going to couples counseling. The therapist helped me see how I was enabling Brittany's behavior, how I was making excuses for her instead of holding her accountable, how I was prioritizing keeping peace over doing what's right. Is she still paying me back? Every month, $500. We sold some things, downsized where we could. It's going to take years, but we'll pay you back every cent. Good. More silence. Then Marcus said, I miss you. I miss having my sister in my life. Can we try to fix this? I wanted to say yes immediately, wanted to hug him and forgive him and pretend the last 6 months hadn't happened, but I couldn't. Too much damage had been done. Too many words couldn't be taken back. I don't know, Marcus. I want to, but I need time. What happened hurt me more than you realize. And I can't just pretend it didn't. I understand. Take all the time you need. Just know that I love you. And I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. We finished our coffee making small talk, but the ease we'd once had was gone. We were careful with each other now. Guarded. Like strangers being polite rather than siblings with decades of shared history. When we parted ways, I felt sad. Not angry anymore. Just sad that something important had been broken, and I wasn't sure it could ever be fully repaired. A year after the initial confrontation, Brittany paid off her debt early. She and Marcus sold their house in Buckhead, moved to a smaller place in Decatur, used the difference to pay me back everything she owed plus interest. All $30,000. She sent me a check with a note. This doesn't undo what I did, but I hope it's a start toward making amends. I'm sorry for everything. I deposited the check, didn't respond to the note. The money didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that she'd followed through, that she'd actually done what she promised. A week later, she sent me a text. I know you don't owe me anything, but I want you to know I'm getting help, real help. Therapy to understand why I did what I did, why I was so angry and bitter, why I let resentment turn into theft. I'm trying to be better. For Marcus, for my kids, for myself. I stared at that text for a long time before responding. I'm glad you're getting help. I hope you find peace. Her response came immediately. Thank you. And Jasmine? For what it's worth, you were right about everything. I was wrong. I was a thief. I betrayed you. And I'm sorry. We weren't friends. Would probably never be friends again. But at least we'd reached a place where we could acknowledge each other without hatred. My relationship with Marcus improved slowly. We started having coffee once a month, then twice a month. Eventually, we got to a place where we could talk about more than just surface things, where we could acknowledge the hurt and the mistakes and the ways we'd both contributed to the fracture. I think Brittany kicking you out of my party was about her guilt, Marcus said during one of our coffee meetings, about 18 months after everything started. She knew what she was doing with the payroll fraud, and seeing you, being around you, made her feel worse. So she pushed you away, made you the bad guy so she didn't have to face her own actions. That makes sense. Doesn't make it hurt less. I know, and I should have questioned it at the time. Should have wondered why my wife suddenly decided you weren't family. But I didn't want to look too closely. Didn't want to see what I'd see if I dug deeper. We all missed things we should have seen. I missed that she was stealing from me for 18 months. You missed that she was capable of it. We were all blind to what we didn't want to see. Do you think we'll ever get back to how things were, before all this? I thought about that carefully. No, I don't think so. Too much has changed. But I think we can build something new, something different. Maybe something better if we're honest with each other. I'd like that. 2 years after everything exploded, I was invited to speak at a conference about business leadership and ethics, about building systems to prevent fraud, about managing employee relationships, about the intersection of family and business. I accepted, and I told my story, carefully, without naming names specifically, but sharing the broad strokes, how family members had stolen from my company, how I'd discovered it, how I'd handled it, the lessons I'd learned about trust and verification, and the importance of systems over assumptions. After the talk, dozens of people came up to me. Other business owners with similar stories. People who'd been stolen from by family or friends or trusted employees. Everyone carrying their own version of my pain. Thank you for being honest about this, one woman said. I felt so alone when my brother stole from my company, like I was the only one stupid enough to let it happen. Hearing your story helped me realize I'm not alone, that even successful people make these mistakes. That meant more than any amount of money Brittany could have paid back. It meant my pain had purpose. My story could help others avoid the same traps I'd fallen into. It's been 3 years now since Brittany kicked me out of Marcus's birthday party. 3 years since I discovered the ghost shifts and the payroll fraud. 3 years since my family fractured and slowly, painfully began to rebuild itself into something different. My company is thriving. We've expanded to 7 cities across the Southeast. Annual revenue hit $25 million last year. I've implemented security systems that would catch fraud within days, if not hours. I've learned to balance trust with verification, family with business, compassion with accountability. My relationship with Marcus is good. Not the same as it was before, but good. We talk weekly, see each other regularly. He apologized dozens more times before I finally told him to stop, that I'd forgiven him and we needed to move forward. His kids are doing well. Kennedy is 11 now and still wants to be a veterinarian. Tyler is 16 and just got his driver's license. I'm back in their lives, showing up for birthdays and school events, being the aunt they deserve. Brittany and I are civil. We can be in the same room without tension. We can attend family events without drama. She's been working as an office manager at a dental practice for 2 years now, making legitimate money, staying out of trouble. She completed her therapy, stayed in her marriage, focused on being better. And me? I learned lessons I wish I'd learned differently. I learned that success means nothing if you neglect the people who matter. I learned that family relationships require actual effort, not just showing up when it's convenient. I learned that trust needs to be balanced with verification, even with people you love. But most importantly, I learned that being betrayed doesn't define you. How you respond to betrayal defines you. And I chose to respond with a mix of justice and mercy. I held people accountable while also giving them a chance to make things right. I didn't let anger poison me into someone I didn't want to be. Angela is still with me. She's now my chief operating officer, earning 3 times what she made as my assistant, because loyalty and competence deserve to be rewarded. Nicole, my sister who never wavered in her support, is now a partner in my company. I brought her in last year because I realized I needed family in my business who I could actually trust. My parents are proud of how I handled everything. My father told me last year that watching me stand up for myself while also showing grace taught him things about integrity he'd never fully understood. My mother admitted she was wrong to pressure me to just forgive and forget, that accountability matters even in family. If you've made it this far in this story, if you've heard this whole journey about betrayal and fraud and fractured family, I hope you learned something from my mistakes. I hope you implement better systems in your business. I hope you balance trust with verification. I hope you love your family, but don't let that love make you blind to their flaws. And if you're going through something similar right now, if you're dealing with theft from someone you trusted, if you're navigating the impossible space between family loyalty and personal justice, I want you to know something important. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You deserve accountability even from people you love. Stand up for yourself. Set boundaries. Demand consequences. But also leave room for redemption if people earn it. Because the alternative, staying angry forever or enabling bad behavior, costs you something more valuable than any amount of money: your integrity. 3 years ago, I thought the worst day of my life was being kicked out of my brother's party. But looking back now, I see it differently. That day was a gift. A painful, humiliating gift that forced me to see truths I'd been avoiding. That my family relationships were shallow. That people I trusted were betraying me. That I'd built a successful company but failed at maintaining meaningful connections. The payroll fraud that came to light after that party was a symptom of bigger problems. Problems I'd been ignoring. Problems that required painful solutions. But 3 years later, I'm better for it. My family is better for it. We had to break before we could rebuild. Had to face hard truths before we could move forward honestly. I'm not grateful for the betrayal. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. But I'm grateful for what I learned from it. For the strength I discovered. For the boundaries I learned to set. For the grace I learned to extend without sacrificing my own dignity. Brittany stole $30,000 from me. But in trying to take what wasn't hers, she accidentally gave me something valuable. Clarity about who I am and what I'm willing to tolerate. That clarity has served me well in the years since. I still think about that night sometimes. Standing in Brittany's foyer, being told I wasn't family, feeling the eyes of 60 people watching my humiliation. I still remember the shame, the confusion, the hurt, but I also remember what came after. The discovery, the confrontation, the choice to demand accountability, the slow rebuild, the lessons learned, the person I became through that fire. If I could go back and change it, would I? Would I rather have never discovered the fraud, never confronted Brittany, never fractured my family? No. Because living in comfortable lies is worse than facing painful truths. And I'd rather be the person who demands honesty, even when it costs me, than the person who accepts betrayal to keep the peace. That's what I want you to understand if you're listening to this story. That standing up for yourself isn't selfish. That demanding accountability isn't cruel. That protecting yourself while also leaving room for redemption is possible. You can be both strong and compassionate, both just and merciful, both hurt and healing. 3 years ago, my sister-in-law told me to leave the party. 2 weeks later, payroll access showed me her ghost shift overtime. And in that discovery, in that betrayal, In that impossible choice between family loyalty and personal justice, I found out who I really was. I was someone who refused to be a victim, someone who demanded truth even when lies were easier, someone who could be hurt without being broken, someone who could extend grace without sacrificing integrity. That's who I became in the fire of that crisis. And I'm proud of her, proud of me, proud of the choices I made even though they were hard, proud of the family we rebuilt even though it's different now, proud of the lessons I learned even though they cost me dearly. If this story resonated with you, if it helped you feel less alone in your own struggles with family betrayal or business ethics, or the impossible balance between love and accountability, hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. Because we're all just trying to navigate these complicated situations where loyalty clashes with justice, where love meets betrayal, where family proves to be both our greatest blessing and our deepest wound. You're not alone in this. I promise you're not alone, and I promise that survival is possible, that rebuilding is possible, that becoming stronger from what tried to break you is possible. I survived. I rebuilt. I thrived. You can too. That's my story. That's my truth. That's what I learned about family and fraud and the high cost of blind trust. And if nothing else, I hope it helps you avoid making the same mistakes I did. I hope it helps you implement better systems. I hope it helps you love your family while also protecting yourself. I hope it helps you understand that demanding accountability isn't unforgiving. It's self-respect. 3 years later, I'm good. Really, truly good. Better than I was before. Stronger, wiser, more careful but not cynical. More guarded but not closed off. More aware of people's capacity for betrayal but still capable of trust. That's the balance I've found. And it's hard won, but it's mine. And it's enough.